Today we're going to be making our own version of Miracle Whip for carnivores. So instead of oil, we're going to be using melted butter. And I'm going to be fermenting it, so that way it'll keep in the fridge for months instead of just a few days. So this is just a quick look at how we're getting started here. So we've got our organic probiotic kefir. And we've got some lemon juice, some apple cider vinegar. You could use regular vinegar, that's fine. I've got some old-fashioned sugar-free Dijon Mustard. I've got a couple of raw eggs. Now they're sitting out here to warm up to room temperature. That's very important. And I've got a full pound of salted butter. And I've got that sitting in a container here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this little rack, and we're going to put it down in the water, and then put this container on top, and then we're going to just turn the heat to just like a medium. You just don't want your water to start boiling furiously away. And all we're going to be doing is melting the butter. I've also got some other ingredients here. Now, this says garlic powder, but it's actually granulated garlic. I just keep refilling this container. And we've got some measuring utensils. We've got a hand mixer. It's much easier to do it with this, although you could do it in a blender. And I've got some Himalayan salt. So when I give you the actual amounts that we're going to be using, keep in mind that if you're using regular table salt, which I actually don't recommend, but if you're using regular table salt, you're going to need a little less. So in this case, I'm going to be using a full teaspoon of the Himalayan salt. If you're using white table salt, you'd use 3/4 of a teaspoon for this size of recipe. And this container, it just so happens, is the perfect size. It just barely holds this batch. It fills it right to the top. So we're also going to be looking at 3 tablespoons of the apple cider vinegar. Now in my case, I'm using the brand called Bragg, and it's raw, unfiltered, organic with the mother. And I'm also going to be using the tablespoon of the granulated garlic. And I'll be adding some pepper and some of the Dijon mustard to taste. I don't really measure it out, I just put it in. All these ingredients and the amounts will be in the description. And this, by the way, is a pound of butter, a full pound, or 454 grams. So once the butter is melted and we're ready to put this together, I'll bring you back. Just one last little note. It can be very difficult if you don't have someone to help you, because the butter needs to be poured in as you're using the hand mixer, and it wants to go all over the place and spin around. I had that problem the last time I did this, so either get someone to help you, or I'm going to try doing a little experiment. That's why I got this little glass cutting board. I'm actually going to take a hot glue gun and I'm going to glue this down to this, and that should hold it in place. All right. Due to the magic of YouTube, we'll see you in a few seconds. All right, so we've got everything ready to go here. And I've let the butter cool down for about 10 minutes after it was fully melted. And we need to do that so that it doesn't cook the eggs when we're trying to actually put everything together. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open our container. And I did glue it down with the hot glue. Now these eggs have been sitting out here for a while, so let them get up to room temperature. That's very important when you're making mayonnaise. So we're just going to put these in whole. Now if you want a little thicker, richer mayonnaise, you can actually separate the yolks from the whites and just put in the yolks. But then instead of 2, you would put in, like instead of 2 whole eggs, you would put in 3 yolks. Okay, so we're just going to emulsify these eggs up a little bit before we add anything else. Now I've already taken the liberty of measuring out the dry ingredients into a container. Same thing with the wet ingredients. Well, a couple of the wet ingredients. The mustard, it's easier just to do it straight from the bottle. And the kefir, to be honest, I just forgot to put it in there. But we can add that before we start mixing everything up. Yeah, it looks like I accidentally hit the trip switch on that GFI plug. Okay, so this should work now. Okay, so we just did a very basic mixing up there. So now we're going to add our dry ingredients, and the amounts and what's in there will be in the description. And we'll put our lemon juice and apple cider vinegar. And I'm just going to pour some kefir in. It doesn't have to be an exact amount. I'm looking for about 2 or 3 tablespoons. So 1 and 2, and I think that should be pretty close. And it doesn't really matter. It's just providing the fermentation bacteria. So if you're worried you didn't have enough, you can just let it ferment a little longer. And now we're going to add our mustard. Just shake it down to the end of the bottle here. Oh, I'm making a mess. But hey, we're cooking, everybody. You make a mess. Now it's important, I don't know if you noticed, but all of these ingredients were left out to warm up to room temperature. That's very important. Okay, now I'm just going to do a final little stir on the butter here. Now if you don't want the milk solids in the butter, you could separate out to ghee, but then you would want to make sure you've got a full 2 cups of ghee, because that's what this recipe is designed for. But I like the flavor of the extra ingredients. Okay, so as we mix this, we're going to be pouring in the butter. Switch on here. And we're going to start off slow. Now you notice as I'm doing this, I'm working the mixer up and down a little bit. It wants to suction itself to the bottom, so try not to let it get stuck on the bottom, but you got to work it up and down as you're doing this, and it'll slowly thicken. And when it really starts to spray up out of there, then we've got it mixed enough. We'll go back to low and add some more. Now, I will note that last time I made this, I didn't put in the apple cider vinegar. I was making more of a plain mayonnaise. So that 3 tablespoons looks like that's made it so we can't quite get all the butter in there, but it should be fine. Okay, now it's not real thick like you're used to seeing regular mayonnaise, but that's okay because being that it's made out of butter, it's going to really thicken up in the fridge. I've got some all over the place here, and you can take a little taste. Sorry for licking my fingers, but ooh, boy, that really does taste like Miracle Whip. Only much better, much cleaner and fresher. And without the sugar. Now, the actual official Miracle Whip recipe has quite a bit of sugar in it. But being that this is carnivore, we're omitting the sugar. And we're going to get all the sugar content that we need just naturally from the ingredients that we used. It's always difficult to clean these things off. I probably could have got a little more butter in there, but as I was bringing it up near the top, as I was mixing, it was just about ready to overflow, so you don't want that. All right. Okay, so that's basically all there is to making it. So I'm just gonna wipe this down a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna break it off the glue. Yeah, it's settled down a little bit. I probably could have got a tiny bit more butter in there, but that's okay. Just gonna break that loose from the glue. So that's what we're looking at. Now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this sit on the stove or any place, any place on the counter is fine. So we're just going to let it sit at room temperature for, you can go anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, depending on how strong of the extra flavor that you want. What I discovered the last time when I made this was that when it got thickened up in the fridge and changed flavor, it actually tasted quite a bit like cream cheese. So this is going to be like a kind of a tangier cream cheesy type flavor. And it definitely gets really super thick like cream cheese. So if you want to be able to pour it onto something, you'll need to warm it up a bit in the microwave or double boiler or however you want to do it. So once it's sat for the number of hours, I think in this case, I'm probably going to leave it for about 8 hours. And then it goes in the fridge and there it stays until you need to use it. Now, just don't make the same mistake that I did. When I made my last batch, it was so good, I started eating it by the spoonful, and it's so calorie dense that I wound up putting a few pounds on in the few days I was eating it. I mean, the jar was supposed to be able to last for months, and I finished it off in like a week. So, yeah, don't do that. This is really meant to be used as a condiment only. So I hope you enjoyed our melted butter mayonnaise. If you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And to make sure you don't miss any more recipes in the future, make sure you hit that notification bell. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.